She pleads, "Don't get in that cab." 7 seconds later, everyone falls silent. Michael Robert Thompson adjusted his tie as he walked along the crowded sidewalk of Fifth Avenue when he heard the desperate screams behind him. For 3 months, he had endured this suffocating routine since hiring a caregiver to organize the house that had become chaotic after his wife's passing. Emily Wilson ran down the sidewalk as if her life depended on it, shouting at the top of her lungs for him not to enter that specific yellow cab that had just stopped right in front of him. The number 1247 gleamed on the roof of the vehicle under the afternoon sun of New York. "Mr. Michael, please, don't get in this car," she cried, breathless. Michael turned around irritably. That young woman had become a constant nuisance in his life. Since she started working in his home, she seemed determined to meddle in matters that didn't concern her. First, it was questions about old photographs, then attempts to talk about his family, and now this. "Emily, for heaven's sake, what's this all about?" he replied impatiently. The cab driver rolled down the window and gestured for Michael to get in. He was a middle-aged man with graying hair and a tired expression on his face. Michael couldn't see his eyes because of the dark sunglasses he wore. "Are you getting in or not?" the driver asked in a hoarse voice. Emily stepped closer, panting, her hands visibly trembling. "Mr. Michael, I know you think I'm nosy, but please, trust me this once. Don't get in this cab." Michael looked at her with disdain. Over the past few months, since Catherine had passed, he had become a bitter man. The house that was once filled with laughter now echoed only with his lonely footsteps in the halls. Catherine always said he needed to be more patient with people, but Catherine wasn't there anymore to remind him. "Enough, Emily, you're overreacting. It's just an ordinary cab." He opened the rear door of the yellow vehicle and got in, completely ignoring the young woman's pleas. Emily stood frozen on the sidewalk, tears welling in her eyes, knowing she had failed once again. Michael slammed the door shut and settled into the worn leather seat. The car's scent was familiar, but he couldn't place where he knew it from. "Where to, sir?" the driver asked, still not turning around. "Hudson Yards Mall, please." The car began moving slowly through the heavy afternoon traffic. Michael glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Emily still standing on the sidewalk, her hands covering her face. For a moment, he felt a pang of guilt, but quickly pushed it away. He couldn't let an employee dictate his life. There were exactly 7 seconds of tense silence inside the cab. Then the driver adjusted the rearview mirror and finally turned around, slowly removing his sunglasses. The world stopped. Michael felt as if all the air had been sucked from his lungs. Those brown eyes, that small scar on the left eyebrow, that expression he had known since childhood. It was impossible, but it was real. "Daniel?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. His older brother, missing for 15 years, was right there, driving a yellow cab through the streets of New York. Daniel Thompson, the man who had left home after the most devastating fight of their lives, was sitting less than 2 meters away. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Daniel gripped the steering wheel tightly, his fingers turning white from the force. His eyes filled with tears he desperately tried to hold back. "Hi, Michael," he said simply, his voice choked. Silence once again filled the interior of the vehicle. Michael could feel his heart pounding so loudly he was sure Daniel could hear it. 15 years. 15 years without a word, without a phone call, without knowing whether his brother was even alive. You work as a cab driver?" he managed to ask, still in shock. Daniel laughed bitterly, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. "Among other things, life hasn't exactly been kind to me since I left home." Michael studied his brother more closely. Daniel looked like he had aged more than just the 15 years that had passed. Deep wrinkles lined his face, and his overall appearance spoke of exhaustion and resignation. Why did you never try to reach out? And you? Why did you never look for me?" Daniel threw the question back, stopping at a red light. The question hit Michael like a punch to the gut. He knew the answer, but admitting it would mean acknowledging years of wounded pride and stubbornness. I thought you never wanted to see me again. After that fight about Dad's inheritance. That fight was never about money, Michael. And you know that. Daniel was right. The argument had started over the division of their father's estate, but it quickly spiraled into something much bigger. Years of pent-up resentment, unspoken words, old grievances, all exploding into one devastating confrontation. I know, Michael admitted, lowering his head, but when you left home that night, I thought... You thought I chose money over family, but you were wrong, brother. I left because I couldn't stand seeing what we had become. Two people who loved each other fighting like enemies. The light turned green, but Daniel didn't move right away. Other cars began honking behind them, but he seemed oblivious. Daniel, the light's green, Michael said softly. I know, I just need a moment. Finally, Daniel accelerated, heading toward the mall. But Michael knew he couldn't just go on with his afternoon as if nothing had happened. How did you know where I was? He asked. Daniel hesitated before answering. I didn't. I drive down that street every day for months. For months? Why? Because I know where you live, Michael. I always have. And every day I pass by hoping I'll find the courage to knock on your door. The revelation shook Michael even more. His brother had been nearby all this time and he hadn't even known. But you never had the courage, Daniel finished, especially after Catherine. He didn't finish the sentence, but Michael understood. Daniel knew about Catherine's passing. Somehow he had found out his sister-in-law was gone. You knew? I read it in the paper, the obituary. She was always special, Michael. I'm sorry. The tears Michael had been holding back finally began to fall. Catherine. His sweet Catherine, who always said life was too short for grudges. How many times had she suggested he reach out to Daniel? How many times had he refused, insisting his brother's pride was stronger than his love for family? She always asked about you, Michael whispered. Always said, I should look for you. That's the kind of person she was. Always seeing the best in people, always trying to bring those who drifted apart back together. They drove in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own memories. Michael watched the city pass by the window, but his mind was elsewhere, in another time. He remembered Sunday football games with Daniel when they were kids, the fishing trips with their father, the nights they stayed up talking about dreams and plans for the future. Do you have a family? Michael asked, breaking the silence. Daniel shook his head. Never really settled down. Always changing jobs, moving cities. It wouldn't be fair to anyone. So now? How long have you been in New York City? 2 years. I started driving a yellow cab a year and a half ago. Michael processed this information. Daniel had been in New York City for 2 years and he had no idea. How many times could they have crossed paths on the streets? How many missed opportunities for reconciliation? Why did you come back? Daniel took a deep breath before answering. Michael noticed his brother's hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. I came back because I need to tell you something, Michael. Something important. Daniel's tone of voice changed completely. There was a seriousness, a gravity that made Michael sit up straighter in his seat. What is it? Not here. Not while I'm driving. We can stop at the mall, or would you prefer I take you home? Michael thought for a moment. Going home would mean having to explain to Emily how she had known about Daniel, and he still didn't understand how she had known. Let's go home, he decided. But first, I need to understand one thing. How did Emily know? Daniel smiled for the first time since they had recognized each other. Your caregiver is more observant than you think. What do you mean? For weeks she's seen me driving by the street, always at the same time, always slowing down when I pass your house. I think she started to suspect. Michael remembered the odd questions Emily had been asking in recent weeks, about old photos, about his family, about his past. He had always dismissed them as excessive curiosity from a nosy employee. And how did she find out who you were? Well, that'll surprise you, but it's better if she explains it herself when we get home. The rest of the drive passed in contemplative silence. Michael watched Daniel drive and noticed small details he had forgotten. The way he tapped his fingers on the steering wheel when nervous, how he bit his lower lip when focused, how his eyes narrowed slightly when worried. When they finally arrived at Michael's house, Emily was sitting on the front steps, clearly waiting for them. She stood up quickly when she saw the yellow cab approaching. Daniel stopped the car and turned off the engine. For a moment, neither brother moved. "Michael," Daniel said, turning to face him directly. "Before we go in, I need you to know that I never wanted our family to fall apart. And I need you to know that maybe we don't have much time to fix things." "What do you mean by that?" But Daniel was already getting out of the car, leaving the question unanswered. Michael followed him, feeling his legs shaky as he walked toward Emily. The young caregiver was visibly nervous, wringing her hands and looking back and forth between the two brothers. "Mr. Michael, I can explain everything," she began. "You already knew," Michael said, not as a question but as a statement. "I did, yes, for weeks. And I tried to tell you several times, but you always cut me off." Michael remembered the times Emily had tried to start conversations about family, about the past, about old photographs. He had always changed the subject or left the room. "How did you find out?" Emily looked at Daniel, as if asking for permission to tell. He nodded slightly. "It was because of the photograph on your nightstand, Mr. Michael. The one with you as a child with another boy. I noticed you both had the same scar on your eyebrow, and when I started seeing this yellow cab always passing by at the same time, always slowing down in front of the house." "You investigated," Michael said, impressed. "Not exactly investigation, more like observation and intuition." "Mrs. Catherine had a box with old photos in the closet. I saw it while organizing. There were several photos of the two brothers together." Michael felt a tightness in his chest upon hearing Catherine's name. She had kept those photos, even after all these years of separation between the brothers. "So that's why you tried to stop me from getting into the cab?" "I thought if you two met by chance naturally, maybe things would be different. Easier, less tense." Daniel finally spoke. "She was right. I'd been planning this for weeks but never found the courage. When I saw you on the sidewalk today, I stopped on impulse." The three of them fell silent for a moment, processing the surreal situation they found themselves in. "Let's go inside," Michael suggested finally. "We have a lot to talk about." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Inside the house, Emily prepared coffee while the two brothers sat in the living room. The air was thick with tension and emotion. Michael watched as Daniel examined the decor, noticing how his brother's eyes lingered on certain photographs and objects. "The house looks different," Daniel remarked. "Catherine made a lot of changes over the years. She had good taste in decorating. She always did. I remember when you two got married, she already talked about how she wanted to arrange your home." The mention of the wedding brought a flood of memories to Michael. Daniel had been his best man. He'd given a speech at the wedding, moving the whole family. They had been so close back then that Michael couldn't imagine life without his brother around. Emily brought the coffee and discreetly excused herself, saying she'd tidy up some rooms to give the brothers privacy. Michael silently thanked her for her thoughtfulness. "Daniel," Michael began, but was interrupted. "Let me speak first, Michael. Please. I've practiced this so many times, but I never imagined I'd actually get the chance." Michael nodded, settling deeper into the armchair. "First, I want to apologize for leaving like that, for staying away so long, for not reaching out even when I heard about Catherine. Daniel, you don't have to—" "I do, let me finish." Daniel took a deep breath. "That fight we had wasn't about Dad's inheritance. It was about pride, about resentment, about all the things we both held onto for years without ever really talking." Michael knew Daniel was right. The inheritance had just been the spark for an explosion that had been building for a long time. "When you said I was being greedy, that I only cared about money, it destroyed me. Because you were the person I respected most in the world, and to know you thought so little of me. I was wrong, Michael interrupted. I was hurt and said things I didn't really mean. But you believed them at the time. And I said terrible things too. I told you you were always the favorite son, that everything came easier to you. And you believed that? Daniel ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Michael remembered from childhood. At the time, yes, I was so angry I believed all of it. But with time and distance, I realized I was being unfair. None of it was your fault. We're both victims of our own pride. They drank their coffee in silence for a few minutes. Michael processed his brother's words, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. Where have you been all these years? All over the United States. I worked on farms in the Midwest, in factories in the South, on construction sites in Florida. I could never settle anywhere. Always felt like I was running from something. Were you running from me? I was running from us, from what we represented, from the family I helped destroy. Michael felt his eyes filling with tears again. You didn't destroy anything alone, Daniel. We were both responsible. Yeah, but now I need to tell you the real reason I came back. Michael Robert Thompson's tone changed again, growing more serious. Michael braced himself mentally for what was coming. 4 months ago, I found out I'm sick, Michael. Michael's world collapsed once more that day. Sick how? Cancer. Pancreatic. The doctors said that the time I have left is limited. Michael felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. After reuniting with his brother, after getting the chance at reconciliation he'd always dreamed of, discovering they might lose each other again was devastating. How long? They're not sure. Could be a few months, could be a year. Depends on how my body responds to treatment. What treatment? Are you getting treatment? Daniel laughed bitterly. Michael, I drive a yellow cab. I don't have health insurance, no savings. The best I can get is public care, and you know how that is. That's ridiculous, Michael exploded, standing up from the armchair. You're my brother. I can afford the best treatment available. I didn't come here to ask for financial help, Daniel said firmly. I came because I didn't want to leave without making peace with you, without apologizing to you in person. Michael began pacing the room, his mind racing. I don't care why you came. You're getting treatment, and it'll be the best money can buy. I won't take no for an answer. Michael, no, Daniel, I already lost Catherine. I won't lose you too. Not now that we've found each other again. Daniel stood and walked over to Michael, placing his hands on his brother's shoulders. Listen, the treatment might not work. You need to be prepared for that possibility. Then we'll fight. Together, like we should have from the start. The two brothers embraced for the first time in 15 years. It was a long hug, full of tears, regrets, and love held back for so long. When they pulled apart, Michael saw Emily standing frozen at the entrance to the room, also crying. She had heard the whole conversation. Emily, Michael called. Did you know about this too? She shook her head. No, Mr. Michael. I only knew he was your brother. I never imagined that. Daniel turned to her. Thank you, Emily. If you hadn't insisted so much, if you hadn't tried to warn Michael today, maybe I never would have found the courage to reveal myself. How did you know it would work? Michael asked Emily. How did you know the meeting would go well? Emily wiped her tears and smiled timidly. I didn't. But Mrs. Catherine always talked about Mr. Daniel. Even when you got angry and changed the subject, she kept talking. She said you suffered a lot from the separation, that you missed your brother deeply. Catherine talked about Daniel, Michael asked, surprised. Always. She said one day you'd reconcile, that the love between brothers was stronger than any fight. She never lost hope. Michael's heart ached. Catherine, even in her final moments, still believed in the brothers' reconciliation. Did she leave anything? A letter? A message? Emily hesitated for a moment. Actually, yes, but I wasn't sure if I should give it to you. She left the room and returned minutes later with a yellowed envelope. She handed it to Michael with trembling hands. She gave this to me a few days before she passed, said it was for when the right time came. Michael looked at the envelope. In her delicate handwriting, Catherine had written, "For Michael and Daniel, when you find each other again." With shaking hands, Michael opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, and a few old photographs of the two brothers as children. Michael read the letter aloud. "My dear Michael and Daniel, if you're reading this together, it means my greatest prayer has been answered. I know you love each other deeply, even if pride has built a wall between you. Michael, my love, I know you suffer every day from your brother's absence. I see it in your eyes when you look at old photographs, when you talk about your childhood. You may not admit it, but Daniel is an essential part of who you are. Daniel, if you ever read this, know that Michael never stopped loving you. He just didn't know how to take the first step. The pride you both carry is at once your greatest strength and your greatest weakness. Life is too short to hold on to grudges. I learned that the hard way. Don't waste any more time apart. You're all that's left of your family. You're the living memory of your parents, of Sunday gatherings, of the dreams you shared as children. If I'm no longer here when you find your way back to each other, I want you to know my last wish is to see you united again. Take care of one another, forgive each other, and spend the time you have left with love and gratitude. With all my love, Catherine." When Michael finished reading, all three of them were crying. The silence that followed was heavy with emotion and reflection. "She knew," Daniel whispered. "She knew this would happen." "Catherine always believed in the power of love and forgiveness," Michael said. "She never gave up on us." Emily stepped closer to the two brothers. "Can I say something?" They nodded. "Mrs. Catherine would be so happy seeing you here together. She talked about it so much I almost felt like I knew you personally, Mr. Daniel." "Thank you, Emily," Daniel said. "Thank you for taking care of him when I wasn't here. Thank you for insisting today, even when he ignored you. And thank you for being there for Catherine in her final moments," Michael added. "I know you did more than your job required." Emily blushed slightly. "Mrs. Catherine became like a mother to me. And you, well, you became like family too." At that moment, Michael realized how blind he'd been to the genuine affection Emily held for them. He had mistaken her concern for meddling when all she was doing was showing love and care. "Emily, I owe you an apology," Michael said. "I was unfair to you. You were trying to help me, and all I saw were problems. You were hurting. Pain makes us shut the world out." Daniel watched the exchange between Michael and Emily with interest. "You two are lucky to have found each other," he remarked. "What do you mean?" Michael asked. "Michael, this young woman loves you like a daughter loves a father, and you need someone like that in your life, especially now." Michael looked at Emily with new eyes. Daniel was right. Over the past few months, she had become so much more than an employee. She had become the family he thought he'd lost forever. "And you, Daniel, need to let us take care of you," Emily said firmly. "You're not going through this alone." "Emily's right," Michael agreed. "We'll start treatment right away, and you're staying here with us." "Michael, I can't accept that." "It's not a request, Daniel. It's a demand. Catherine made it clear in her letter that we must take care of each other, and that's what we're going to do." Daniel looked around the room, at the family photographs, at the decor Catherine had chosen with such care, at Michael and Emily watching him expectantly. "All right," he said finally, "but on one condition." "What?" "I want to pull my weight. I don't want to be a burden. I can help around the house. I can drive you when needed. I want to feel useful." "Daniel, you're sick. You need rest. You need to take care of yourself." "Michael, I spent 15 years feeling useless, as if I had no place in the world. Now that I've found my family again, I need to have a purpose." Michael understood perfectly. He himself had spent the last few months feeling lost and directionless after Catherine's departure. "All right, but promise me you'll strictly follow the medical treatment." "I promise." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the weeks that followed, the house on Park Avenue underwent a complete transformation. Daniel moved into the guest room, which had remained closed since Catherine's departure. Emily, who used to leave at the end of the day, now stayed longer, helping with the adjustment and taking care of both Michael and Daniel. The first challenge was finding the best possible treatment for Daniel. Michael used all his business connections to secure the best doctors in New York City. After a series of tests, Dr. Robert Stevens, one of the most respected oncologists in the city, took on the case. "The news isn't the best," the doctor explained during the first consultation. "The cancer is at an advanced stage, but there are still treatment options: aggressive chemotherapy, surgery if possible, and complementary therapies." "What are the chances?" Michael asked directly. "With the right treatment, we can talk about remission, but it's important to keep expectations realistic. Right now, the focus is on quality of life and making the most of the time we have." Daniel took his brother's hand. "We'll fight, Michael. Together." The treatment began immediately. 3 times a week, Michael accompanied Daniel to chemotherapy sessions. On days when Daniel felt too weak, Emily prepared special broths and soups she had learned from her own mother, who had also battled cancer years before. It was during one of those difficult afternoons that Daniel made a revelation that would change everything again. "Michael, I need to tell you something I've kept hidden all these years." They were in the living room, Daniel lying on the couch recovering from a particularly rough chemotherapy session. Emily had gone out shopping. "What is it?" Daniel struggled to sit up. "Do you remember Dad's inheritance, the division that caused our fight?" "Of course I remember. How could I forget?" "Well, I never touched my share." Michael looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "After I left home, I transferred my entire portion of the inheritance to an account that's been untouched all these years. I never spent a single penny." "Daniel, why?" "Because I wanted to prove, mostly to myself, that the fight was never about money. And because I always knew I'd come back one day. And when I did, I wanted to give it all back to you." Michael fell silent, processing the information. 15 years, Daniel. 15 years you could have used that money to live better, to stabilize yourself. And confirm everything you said about me that night, that I was greedy, that I only cared about money. Never. Michael felt a wave of remorse and admiration at the same time. His brother had lived all those years in financial hardship out of principle. "Daniel, you're a far better man than I am." "No, Michael. We both made mistakes. We both suffered. But now we have a chance to make things right. What do you want to do with that money?" Daniel smiled for the first time in days. "I want you to use it to help others. People like Emily, who work hard to care for their families. People who don't have access to the medical treatments I'm getting now." Michael was moved by his brother's generosity. "Catherine would be proud of you. She'd be proud of both of us for finding our way back to each other." That evening, when Emily returned from shopping, she found the 2 brothers in the kitchen preparing dinner together. It was a scene she never imagined possible when she first started working in that house months earlier. "You're cooking?" she asked, surprised. "Daniel is teaching me how to make Dad's pasta," Michael explained. "I never knew the recipe. Dad always said food made with love tastes different," Daniel added. Emily watched the 2 men working side by side in the kitchen, Daniel patiently teaching, Michael learning with genuine interest. It was as if their 15 years apart had never happened. During dinner, Emily shared about her own family. Her mother, Mrs. Patricia, who lived alone in a housing complex in Queens. Her father had passed away when she was still a teenager, and since then, she had become the family's sole provider. "That's why I took this job," she explained. "My mother has diabetes and high blood pressure. The medications are expensive and she needs constant medical care." "Why didn't you ever tell us this before?" Michael asked. "I didn't want you to think I was trying to get favors or a raise. I've always made sure to earn every penny I make." Daniel and Michael exchanged a meaningful look. "Emily," Daniel said, "what if I told you we could help your mother with her medical treatments? Not as a favor, but as recognition for everything you've done for us." "I couldn't possibly accept." "Of course you can," Michael interrupted. "Catherine always said family isn't just about blood. It's about the people we choose to love and who choose to love us back. You're our family, Emily." Tears welled up in the young woman's eyes. "You don't know what this means to me." "Yes, we do," Daniel said, "because you did the same for us. You took care of us when we had no one. That night, for the first time in months, Michael slept soundly. Having Daniel back, seeing Emily happy, feeling like his home had become a home again, it all brought him a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. But life, as always, had other twists in store. The next morning, Michael was awakened by an urgent phone call. It was Dr. Stevens. "Mr. Michael, I need you to bring Daniel to the hospital immediately. The latest test results showed some complications." Michael's heart raced. "What kind of complications?" "It's better we talk in person, but come as soon as possible." Michael rushed to Daniel's room and found him still asleep. He hesitated for a moment before waking him. In recent days, his brother had seemed more animated, more hopeful. How could he deliver news that might shatter that hope? "Daniel," he said softly, touching his brother's shoulder. Daniel opened his eyes slowly. He immediately noticed the worry on Michael's face. "What happened?" Dr. Stevens called. "He wants you at the hospital right away." Daniel sat up in bed, taking a deep breath. "The tests?" "Most likely." "All right, we'll face this together, like we agreed." Emily went with them to the hospital. The entire ride, they tried to keep the conversation light, but the tension was palpable. In Dr. Stevens' office, Daniel sat between Michael and Emily. The doctor's expression was grave. "Daniel, the latest tests show the tumor has grown more than we expected. Unfortunately, the chemotherapy isn't responding as we'd hoped." "What does that mean?" Michael asked. "It means we need to consider more aggressive options. There's an experimental treatment that could be an alternative, but it's risky, with no guarantees." Daniel was silent for a long moment. "Doctor, be straight with me. How long do I have without the experimental treatment?" "It's hard to say. A few months, maybe less. And with the treatment? If it works, it could significantly prolong your life. If it doesn't, it might even speed things up." Michael felt the world spinning around him. After reuniting with Daniel, after all the plans they had made, the possibility of losing him again was devastating. "I want to do the treatment," Daniel said firmly. "Daniel, you heard the risks," Michael interjected. "I did, but I also heard it's my only real chance to spend more time with you all. And I want every extra day I can get." Emily held Daniel's hand. "We'll be with you, no matter what you decide." "I know. And that's why I want to fight." The experimental treatment began the following week. It was more intense and debilitating than traditional chemotherapy. Daniel spent entire days in the hospital, coming home exhausted and weak. Michael had taken an indefinite leave from work to be with his brother every step of the way. Emily had become not just a caregiver, but the glue holding the family together during the toughest moments. During one of Daniel's hospital stays, Michael found Emily crying in the hallway. "Emily, what happened?" "Nothing specific," she replied, wiping her eyes. "It's just, I've grown so attached to both of you. The thought of losing Daniel is unbearable." Michael sat beside her on the hallway bench. "Catherine always said the love we give is never lost, even when people are gone. Every moment we have with Daniel now is a gift." "I know, but it's hard to stay strong all the time." "You don't have to be strong all the time, Emily. We're in this together. When you're weak, I'll be strong for you. When I'm weak, you'll be strong for me." She smiled through her tears. "Thank you for letting me be part of your family. Thank you for choosing to be part of our family." That night, Daniel had a crisis and had to stay in the hospital for a few days. Michael and Emily took turns by his side, making sure he was never alone. It was during one of these vigils that Daniel made another special request. "Michael, I want you to marry Emily." Michael nearly choked on his coffee. "Daniel, what are you saying?" "I'm saying you two love each other, even if you haven't realized it yet. And I'm saying Catherine would approve. Daniel, Emily is almost 20 years younger than me. She sees me as a father figure." "Are you sure about that?" Michael paused to think. Over the past few months, he had noticed small gestures from Emily that went beyond professional care. The way she worried about him, how she smiled when he entered the room, how genuinely happy she was for his small victories. "Even if you're right," Would it be appropriate? She works for me. Michael, when was the last time you cared about social norms? You've been living as a family for months. All that's left is to make it official. And you? How do you feel about the idea? Daniel smiled. I feel happy knowing you'll have each other when I'm gone. Don't talk like that. Michael, we have to be realistic. The treatment might not work. And if it doesn't, I want to know you won't be alone again. That night, Michael lay awake, thinking about Daniel's words. Was there really something more than paternal affection between him and Emily? Did she feel something beyond gratitude and family love? The next day, Daniel was discharged from the hospital. On the way home, he watched Michael and Emily talking in the front seat. Emily, Daniel said suddenly, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Have you ever thought about getting married? Michael nearly lost control of the car. Daniel, it's an honest question. Emily, you're a young, beautiful, caring woman. Why have you never been in a serious relationship? Emily blushed. I've always been so focused on taking care of my mother, and after I started working with you both, I didn't have time to think about relationships. But would you like to have your own family someday? I already have a family, she replied, looking at Michael through the rearview mirror. The two of you. But what about children, a husband? Daniel, Michael interjected, you're being inappropriate. No, it's okay, Emily said. The truth is, well, it's hard to imagine being with someone who doesn't understand how important you both are in my life. It would be like asking someone to accept my heart divided in two. Daniel smiled, satisfied. What if that person was someone who's already part of your family? The silence that followed was tense and full of meaning. Michael parked the car in front of the house, but no one moved to get out. Daniel, Emily finally said, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you two stop pretending you don't feel anything for each other. Michael turned to face Emily. Emily, do you feel... She hesitated, clearly conflicted. I don't know if it's appropriate. Forget what's appropriate, Daniel said. Say what you really feel. Michael took a deep breath. Emily, you've become the most important person in my life. I don't know exactly when it happened, but at some point these past few months, you stopped being just my employee and became everything. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes again. I feel the same way, but I'm afraid it might be gratitude or confusion because of everything that's happened. What if it's not? Michael asked. What if it's real love? Daniel clapped from the back seat. There. That's all I wanted to hear. Now let's go inside and plan a wedding. Daniel, Michael and Emily said in unison. What? Life's too short to waste time on ceremony. That night, after Daniel went to sleep, Michael and Emily had a long, honest conversation about their feelings. They realized what they felt for each other had grown gradually, naturally, and genuinely. Are you sure this is what you want? Michael asked. It's not gratitude, it's not... Emily silenced him with a soft kiss. Michael, I fell in love with you watching how you care for Daniel, seeing your capacity to forgive, watching how you became a better person every day. This isn't gratitude, it's love. 2 weeks later, in a simple courthouse ceremony with Daniel as the best man and Emily's mother as the matron of honor, Michael and Emily got married. It was a moment of immense happiness amid the difficult time they were facing. Daniel was visibly weak, but happy. During the small breakfast they hosted at home after the ceremony, he gave an emotional speech. I want to thank God for giving me the chance to see my brother happy again. Michael, you deserve all the happiness in the world. And Emily, thank you for choosing to love not just Michael, but our whole family. In the months following the wedding, Daniel's condition began showing signs of improvement. The experimental treatment was working better than anyone had hoped. It's a miracle, Dr. Stevens said during a routine checkup. The tumor hasn't just stopped growing, it's shrinking. Does that mean he's cured? Emily asked, barely containing her emotion. It means we're on the right path. It's still too early to talk about a full cure, but the signs are very promising. Daniel was radiant. I'll get to see my nieces and nephews grow up after all, he teased, looking at Michael and Emily. Daniel, Emily protested, blushing. What? You're not thinking about kids?" Michael and Emily exchanged a glance. In truth, they had talked about it recently. "We've been thinking," admitted Michael, "but we want to make sure you're doing well first. I'm great, and I'll be even better as an uncle." 6 months after the wedding, Emily discovered she was pregnant. The news was met with immense joy by everyone, especially Daniel, who became the most devoted uncle even before the baby was born. During Emily's pregnancy, Daniel took on even more responsibilities at home. He had become not just a beloved brother, but a true pillar of the family they had built together. Dr. Stevens remained optimistic about Daniel's progress. The experimental treatment had been nearly a complete success. Daniel still needed regular medical checkups, but his quality of life had improved dramatically. "You know," Daniel said one afternoon while helping Emily organize the baby's room, "I used to think that fight with Michael was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And now? Now I realize it might have been necessary. If we hadn't been apart, maybe we wouldn't have valued being together again so much. Do you think it was worth it? 15 years apart?" Daniel stopped folding the baby clothes and looked at Emily. "No, the 15 years were a terrible waste, but the reconciliation, the family we built together, the chance to start over, that's worth everything. What if you had reconciled earlier before you got sick? Maybe we wouldn't have appreciated it as much. The illness taught me that time is precious, that the people we love are what truly matter, and it taught me to be grateful for every extra day I have with you all." That December, Emily gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, whom they named Catherine, in honor of the woman who had made the family's reconciliation possible. Daniel fell in love with his niece the moment he saw her. He divided his time between caring for the house, helping with the baby, and his new personal project. With part of the inheritance he had saved over the years, Daniel created a foundation to help families facing cancer who couldn't afford proper treatment. Emily became his main collaborator in the project. "Catherine would be proud," Michael said, watching Daniel play with the baby in the backyard. "She is proud," Emily corrected. "Wherever she is, she's watching our happy, reunited family." "You really believe she's watching?" "I believe the love she planted in our lives keeps growing. Every time we forgive, every time we choose love over pride, every time we take care of each other, that's Catherine living through us." On little Catherine's first birthday, the family threw a party in the backyard. Daniel was strong and healthy, his test showing the cancer was in complete remission. The foundation he'd created was already helping dozens of families. Michael had returned to work, but on reduced hours, prioritizing time with his family. Emily had decided to dedicate herself fully to the foundation and raising their daughter, at least for the first few years. During the party, Daniel made a special toast. "I want to thank everyone here today. 2 years ago, I was a lonely, sick man without hope. Today, I'm surrounded by the family I love, with my health restored and a purpose in life." He looked at Michael and Emily. "My brother and sister-in-law taught me it's never too late to start over. That forgiveness has a healing power beyond any medicine. And that family isn't just those we share blood with, but those we choose to share our lives with. And my niece Catherine," he continued, gazing at the baby in Emily's arms, "taught me that the future always holds hope. That each generation has the chance to do better than the last." Michael stood up to embrace his brother. "Daniel, thank you for having the courage to come back. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for forgiving me, brother. Thank you for welcoming me when I needed it most. And thank you for insisting I stop being so stubborn with Emily," Michael added, making everyone laugh. Emily approached the two brothers holding the baby. "And I'm grateful that you both taught me what a real family is, for showing me that love isn't just a feeling, but a choice we make every day." Little Catherine drooled and smiled, as if she understood the importance of that moment. As the sun set over the garden of the house on Park Avenue, the family that had been broken by pride and rebuilt by love wasn't just celebrating a child's birthday, they were celebrating their own rebirth. Daniel had overcome not only cancer, but the loneliness and regret that had haunted him for so many years. Michael had learned to open his heart again, finding love and family where he least expected it. Emily had discovered that sometimes our true family is the one we choose, and that chooses us back. And somewhere, Michael was sure, Catherine was smiling, seeing her final wishes come true. 2 years later, little Catherine was already running through the garden, always closely followed by Uncle Daniel, who had become her favorite adventure partner. The foundation they'd created had already helped over 500 families, and Daniel had become a leading figure in oncology social work. Michael was in the kitchen making breakfast when he heard laughter from the garden. Through the window, he saw Daniel playing hide-and-seek with Catherine, while Emily arranged the flowers she'd planted in the flower bed. It was a scene of simple, genuine happiness. A family that had found its way back to each other through love, forgiveness, and the determination not to waste the second chances life offers. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Dr. Stevens. "Good morning, Michael. I have great news about Daniel." "Go ahead, doctor." "The tests show he's been in complete remission for 2 years now. We can consider him cured." Michael felt tears of joy welling up. "Doctor, thank you for everything." Medicine helped, Michael. But what truly healed your brother was your family's love. That made all the difference. Michael hung up and ran to the garden. "Daniel, Emily, come here." They approached, curious. "Dr. Stevens just called. Daniel, you're officially cured." The garden erupted in cheers. Daniel hugged Michael tightly while Emily cried happy tears, and little Catherine clapped her hands, not fully understanding but feeling the contagious joy of the adults. "Does this mean I don't need checkups anymore?" Daniel asked. "It means you have a long life ahead to be the best uncle in the world," Michael replied. "And to watch your nieces and nephews grow up," Emily added, with a mysterious smile. Michael and Daniel looked at her questioningly. "Emily?" Michael said slowly. "Well, since we're celebrating, I was waiting for the right moment to tell you. We're having another baby." This time it was Michael who had to sit down from sheer emotion. Daniel scooped little Catherine into his arms and danced around the garden with her. "Did you hear that, Catherine? You're going to have a little brother or sister." The girl giggled and clapped, completely caught up in the joy of the moment. That afternoon, as the family celebrated all the good news, Daniel had an idea. "Michael, how about we take a trip, all of us together? To that place where Dad used to take us when we were kids. Virginia Beach?" "Exactly. How long has it been since we went there?" Michael calculated in his head. "Must be about 20 years, since before the fight. Then it's settled. We'll make new happy memories there." A week later, they were at Virginia Beach, staying at the same hotel they used to visit as children. Daniel and Michael built sandcastles with Catherine, while Emily rested under the umbrella, protecting her new pregnancy. "You know what I was thinking?" said Daniel, as he helped Catherine decorate a castle with seashells. "What?" asked Michael. "I was thinking Mom and Dad would be so happy to see us here, with our families, having moved past all those old fights." "They'd be proud," Michael agreed, "especially of how you recovered, the foundation you started, how you became such a wonderful uncle. And they'd be happy to see you found love again. Catherine always wanted you to be happy." Michael looked at Emily, who slept peacefully under the umbrella, one hand unconsciously resting on her belly where their second child grew. "Sometimes, I still can't believe how much our lives have changed. 3 years ago, I was a bitter man, alone, with no family. Now you have a beautiful family, a brother who loves you, and the certainty that we can overcome anything when we're together." Catherine raised her arms to Uncle Daniel, asking to be held. He picked her up and pointed to the ocean. "Look there, Catherine, the ocean is big, isn't it? But do you know what's even bigger?" The little girl looked at him curiously. "Our family's love. It's bigger than the ocean, bigger than the sky, bigger than anything in the world." Michael smiled, watching the interaction between Daniel and his daughter. They'd had a special bond from the very beginning. Daniel had become not just an uncle, but another father figure in Catherine's life. "Daniel," Michael said, "I want to ask you something." "Go ahead." "If you could go back in time, Would you change anything? Avoid the fight? Stay home? Daniel thought for a long moment before answering. You know, Michael, I spent years regretting that night, wondering how our lives would have been different if I hadn't left. But now I realize maybe we needed to go through all that to get where we are today. How so? Think about it. If we hadn't fought, you might never have valued reconciliation so much. I might never have learned to cherish family the way I do. And most of all, we might never have met Emily, who became the heart of our family. Michael reflected on his brother's words. There was wisdom in them. And if the illness had never happened? Oh, that I'd change without hesitation, Daniel said quickly. But even the illness taught us important things. It taught me not to waste time, to say, I love you every day, to cherish every moment with you. Catherine grew sleepy in her uncle's arms. Daniel rocked her gently, humming a lullaby their mother used to sing when they were children. Daniel, Michael said softly, thank you. For what? For coming back. For having the courage. For teaching me it's never too late to start over. Thank you, brother, for forgiving me, for welcoming me home, for giving me a family again. That night at the hotel, after Catherine fell asleep and Emily turned in early because of the pregnancy, the two brothers stayed on the balcony, watching the ocean under the moonlight. Michael, Daniel said, can I tell you a secret? Of course. All those years away, every night before bed, I'd look at the stars and make the same wish. What wish? I wished for a second chance. An opportunity to make peace with yourself, to be part of your family again. Michael felt his eyes fill with tears. And now? What do you wish for when you look at the stars? Daniel smiled. Now I just give thanks. I'm grateful for every day I have with you, for every smile from Catherine, for every moment of happiness we've shared. And for 40 more years ahead, Michael added. For 40 more years ahead, Daniel agreed, raising a soda can in an imaginary toast. They sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts, but united by the certainty that they had found their way back to each other. On the last day of their trip, they visited the pier where they used to fish with their father. Daniel had borrowed a fishing rod from the hotel. Dad always said fishing wasn't about the fish, Michael remembered. It was about the time we spent together, the conversations, about being present in the moment, Daniel finished. They set up the rod and sat at the edge of the pier, with Catherine playing between them and Emily reading a book in the shade. You know what I think Dad would say if he saw us now? Daniel asked. What? He'd say, finally, my boys understand what really matters. And Mum would say, I always knew you'd work it out. Mothers just know, Michael added, imitating his mother's voice. They laughed, remembering the quirks of their parents who had passed away so many years ago. They'd have loved to meet Emily and Catherine, Daniel said, and they'd have adored their granddaughter. Dad would have taught her to fish, Mum would have spoiled her with treats, and they'd have fought over who got to babysit the new baby, Daniel joked. Definitely. Remember how they'd argue about who'd take us to school? And in the end, they'd both go because neither wanted to miss a moment. Catherine ran up to them, holding a tiny shell she'd found. Look, Uncle, she said, showing her treasure to Daniel. How beautiful, Princess. Let's keep it for your castle at home. The little girl nodded excitedly and ran off to show Emily the shell. She's going to be a lucky girl, Michael remarked. Why? Because she'll grow up knowing she's loved unconditionally. She'll grow up seeing what a family should be, close, caring, present. And she'll have a little brother or sister to share all that love with, Daniel added. Daniel, can I ask you for something? Anything. I want you to be the godfather of the new baby, officially. Daniel stopped fiddling with the fishing line and looked at Michael with emotion. It would be an incredible honor. And I want you to promise me one thing. What? Promise you'll be around to watch my children grow up, that you'll be the involved uncle I know you can be. Michael, I promise. And will you promise me something? Of course. Promise that if I ever get old and cranky, you'll have patience with me, just like I'll have patience with you when you get even more stubborn with age. Michael laughed. I promise. And I promise we'll grow old together, teasing each other but always knowing we love one another. And our kids will grow up seeing how brothers should treat each other, with love, respect, and always ready to forgive when needed. Just then, Michael caught the first fish of the day. It wasn't big, but it caused quite a stir between them. "Dad would have been proud," Daniel said, helping Michael release the fish back into the water. "Why?" "Because he always said the best fish is the one you let go. That sometimes getting what we want isn't as important as knowing when to let go." "Pretty deep for a fishing trip," Michael joked. "Dad was always like that, turned everything into a life lesson. And we'll do the same for our kids." "Absolutely. Let's raise a generation that knows the value of family, forgiveness, and unconditional love." They spent the rest of the afternoon fishing, talking, and playing with Catherine. As the sun began to set, they packed up their gear and headed back to the hotel. That night, on the flight back to New York City, Catherine slept in Daniel's arms while Emily rested her head on Michael's shoulder. Through the airplane window, the city lights began to appear. "Michael," Daniel whispered, careful not to wake Catherine. "Thank you for the best week of my life." "There'll be many more, brother, many more." "I know, and I can't wait for all of them." When they arrived home, they found Emily's mother, Mrs. Patricia, waiting for them. She had taken care of the house while they were away and was eager to hear all about their trip. "How was the trip?" she asked, hugging her daughter. "It was perfect, Mom. Perfect in every way." Mrs. Patricia had become an important part of the family too. Ever since Daniel had arranged the best medical care for her, her health had improved significantly. She had moved into a nearby home and become a loving grandmother in Catherine's life. "And how's our little one doing?" Mrs. Patricia asked, gently touching Emily's belly. "Growing strong and healthy. The doctor said everything is perfect." Daniel laid Catherine, still asleep, on the living room couch. "Mrs. Patricia, you should have seen Catherine at the beach, brave like her mother, clever like her father. And spoiled like her uncle," Michael added, making everyone laugh. "I don't spoil her," Daniel protested. "I just show my love generously." "Daniel, in the past week alone, you bought her a new bucket and shovel, 3 different swimsuits, a sun hat, 5 storybooks, and countless ice creams," Emily listed. "All necessary for a complete beach experience," Daniel defended. "Of course they were," Michael agreed sarcastically. "Especially the 5 ice creams a day." End of story. Tell us what you thought of this heartwarming story of reconciliation and forgiveness. Do you believe Daniel made the right choice by coming back, even though he feared rejection? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more stories celebrating the power of family love.